If you're over 60, there's a silent threat lurking in an everyday habit you might think is keeping you strong. It's an action that could quietly raise your risk of a heart attack while you go about your day. Without pain, without warning. One moment you're healthy, standing in your living room, perhaps engaging in light activity. The next, you could be experiencing crushing chest pain, shortness of breath, or a sudden overwhelming fatigue, or worse, not recognizing the signs at all. As a heart doctor, I've witnessed far too many older adults, good people, active people, suffer severe cardiac events. Not from poor diet or a lack of exercise in general, but from something they genuinely believed was contributing to their well-being, certain exercise habits. Yes, even seemingly simple movements. Millions of seniors strive to stay active every day, hoping to maintain their vitality, prevent illness, and enjoy their golden years independently. But what they don't know is that common exercise mistakes, especially when done at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or under the wrong conditions, can quietly set the stage for a deadly heart event. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the most dangerous exercise mistakes I've seen in my practice. These are habits that can lead to dangerous fluctuations in blood pressure, strain on the heart, and even sudden cardiac events in people who thought they were doing everything right. Stay with me. This information could very well save your life. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell. That way, you'll never miss another health tip designed specifically for you. If you find this video helpful, please type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. High-intensity exercise spikes heart strain instantly. When you think of exercise, you probably envision strength, vitality, or perhaps even longevity. Your fitness instructor, or a well-meaning health article, might have told you that pushing yourself is the key to a strong heart and a long life. But here's what no one tells older adults. Engaging in high-intensity exercise, especially after age 60, can silently trigger a rise in heart strain that puts your cardiovascular system in immediate danger, even as you rest later. Let me tell you about Mr. Richard McCarthy, a 78-year-old retired firefighter from North Carolina. A strong, proud man who had survived a house fire, raised 4 children, and lived through 2 recessions. Richard believed in staying active. Every morning, just after getting out of bed, he would do a quick, vigorous workout, including exercises he saw on a YouTube video meant for men half his age. He'd push himself until he was breathless, feeling a sense of accomplishment. One Tuesday morning, Richard's wife found him slumped sideways in his recliner. He was clutching his chest, his breathing shallow, and he was pale. At the ER, the test showed what I feared: a heart attack caused by a blockage in one of his coronary arteries. Here's what really happened. As we age, our arteries can stiffen, and plaque can build up in the vessels supplying the heart. High-intensity exercise, where you push your heart rate to its maximum, dramatically increases the demand on your heart. That sudden surge doesn't just make you sweat or feel tired. It spikes your blood pressure and heart rate instantly, often without you even realizing the internal strain. For someone like Richard, who was already on medication for mild hypertension and had some underlying plaque buildup, that extra surge was like forcing an old engine to redline. Only his heart couldn't keep up. The extreme pressure and demand on already compromised arteries caused a section of plaque to rupture, leading to a blood clot that completely blocked the flow to a part of his heart muscle. This is how heart attacks often happen, a sudden event triggered by cumulative strain. The cruel irony: Richard thought he was doing everything right to keep his heart strong. What most seniors don't know is that pushing too hard during exercise increases the strain on the heart and circulatory system, especially if you hold your breath or strain. That's known as the Valsalva maneuver, a technique young athletes use to stabilize their core, but which can be deadly for older hearts. It can cause dangerous fluctuations in blood pressure and decrease blood flow to the heart and brain, sometimes leading to permanent damage. Richard is recovering now slowly. He's learning new ways to exercise, focusing on controlled movements. He told me last week, his eyes filled with a new understanding, "Doc, I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't know I was putting my heart under such pressure every morning." He's not alone. I've seen the same pattern in dozens of patients. They push too hard, They ignore warning signs. But their cardiovascular system, the incredible network of blood vessels and the tireless muscle that has carried them through a lifetime, is no longer as forgiving. So, what can you do instead? If you're over 60, switch to moderate intensity exercise. Focus on movements that elevate your heart rate, but still allow you to hold a conversation. Listen to your body. Never push yourself past a comfortable level of exertion. And if you feel chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, or unusual fatigue, stop immediately. It's not weakness to protect your heart, it's wisdom. Remember, physical strength means nothing if your heart is struggling to keep up. And speaking of timing, what if I told you doing certain exercises at a specific time of day can make the risk even worse? When your heart is most vulnerable, even a small misstep could be fatal. Let's talk about what happens when seniors engage in strenuous activity right after waking up, and why that moment may be the most dangerous minute of your entire day for your heart. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Strenuous exercise right after waking up. Most people don't think twice about what they do in the first 5 minutes after waking up. You sit up, stretch, maybe head to the bathroom, and if you're trying to stay fit, you might even add some vigorous activity to wake up your body. It sounds like a responsible habit, harmless, even healthy. But for older adults, strenuous exercise right after waking up could be one of the most dangerous things you do all day for your heart. Let me tell you about Marie Landers, a 72-year-old retired nurse from Indiana. She was strong-willed, independent, and sharp as a tack. After losing her husband to heart failure 5 years ago, she dedicated herself to her health. Every morning before breakfast, she did a vigorous cardio routine next to her bed. She said it helped her feel alive, and honestly, I admired her discipline. Then one morning, she collapsed. Her son found her on the floor of her bedroom, gasping for air. She complained of severe chest pain that radiated to her left arm. At the hospital, the ECG and blood tests showed she had suffered a heart attack. It didn't make sense at first. She didn't smoke. She wasn't obese. Her cholesterol was under control. But as we dug deeper, the pieces started to come together. Here's what most people don't know about the early morning hours, especially for older adults. During sleep, your body becomes slightly dehydrated. Your blood can become thicker. Your blood pressure tends to dip at night and surges rapidly when you first wake up as your body kicks into gear. That sudden spike in blood pressure and increased blood viscosity, combined with aging arteries, can create the perfect storm for a clot to form or for existing plaque to rupture. And when you go from lying still to suddenly engaging in strenuous activity, demanding a quick and significant increase in heart rate and blood flow, you can cause an abrupt and dangerous surge in cardiac demand. In Marie's case, that exact sequence played out. Her heart, stiffened by age and a lifetime of use, couldn't adapt fast enough to the sudden demand. A tiny clot, formed silently in the early hours of the morning, was dislodged or formed acutely, blocking a critical artery to her heart. That's all it took. 1 minute she was exercising beside her bed. The next she was lying on the ground, struggling for breath. What I want older adults to understand is this. Your cardiovascular system doesn't behave the same way it did in your 30s. When you rise in the morning, your blood vessels are adjusting. Your heart is recalibrating. It needs a gentle transition, not sudden, intense movement. And it's not just about heart attacks. Strenuous activity immediately after waking can cause orthostatic hypotension, a sudden drop in blood pressure, or trigger arrhythmias, leading to dizziness, fainting, or falls. Many seniors don't even remember hitting the floor. They wake up in the ER with a concussion or fractured hip, wondering what happened. It's terrifying and often preventable. Marie is recovering now. She's attending cardiac rehabilitation and learning how to exercise safely. She told me, "I thought I was being proactive, doing something good for myself." And that's the part that hurts the most, because she was. But her timing and her age turned that good habit into a dangerous one. If you're over 60 and care about your heart, here's what I urge you to do. Never start your day with strenuous exercise. Instead, sit up slowly. Drink a glass of room temperature water. Give your body a full 5 minutes to adjust. Then if you feel stable, Begin some light stretching or gentle walking. More intense exercise, if you do it, should wait until mid-morning or afternoon, when your body is fully awake, hydrated, and has had time to stabilize. Your morning doesn't have to be risky, but you have to respect what your body is telling you. Now here's where it gets even more dangerous. What if you're doing all the right things, but you're also on heart medication or a diuretic? The next habit might shock you, because when those medications mix with this common exercise mistake, the risk of a cardiac event doesn't just rise, it explodes. Let's talk about what happens when you exercise while on heart or water pills, and why timing could be a matter of life or death. Exercising while on heart or water pills. When you're over 60, chances are high you've been prescribed a medication to manage your blood pressure, cholesterol, or perhaps a diuretic, commonly called a water pill. Millions of older Americans take them every day, often for years, and they can be life-saving. But what most people don't realize is that combining these medications with certain types of exercise can quietly and suddenly push your heart into danger. I've seen it happen too many times, and each time it breaks my heart. One of those moments was with James "Jimmy" Holbrook, a 75-year-old retired mechanic from Michigan. Jimmy was tough, with weathered hands, a sharp mind, and a laugh that could light up a room. He was on a low dose of lisinopril for high blood pressure and hydrochlorothiazide, a water pill his doctor prescribed to keep swelling down in his legs. Every evening before dinner, Jimmy would go into his garage and do a circuit of moderate intensity exercises, including some quick movements while holding on to the back of a chair. He thought it was helping him keep his body strong. But one night, after finishing his routine, he stood up, turned toward the kitchen, and collapsed. His wife heard the thud. When she reached him, he was unconscious, his breathing labored. His blood pressure had crashed so low that it triggered a sudden critical drop in blood flow to his heart. In medical terms, we call it cardiogenic shock, leading to a cardiac arrest, a sudden life-threatening event caused by the heart's inability to pump enough blood. Jimmy's case isn't rare. Here's why it happens, and why so many seniors are at risk. Blood pressure medications and diuretics work by lowering the force of blood against your artery walls or pulling excess fluid out of your body. That's important to prevent heart failure, kidney strain, and heart attacks caused by high pressure. But it also makes your cardiovascular system more fragile, especially when you change positions quickly or engage in activities that rapidly alter blood flow. Now picture this. You're on a water pill, which already reduces your blood volume by increasing urination. You may even be slightly dehydrated, especially if you're not drinking enough. You go to do a series of exercises, pushing your muscles, causing blood to pool in your limbs, then quickly changing positions. The sudden shifts in blood volume and pressure, with less fluid in your system, mean your heart can't compensate fast enough. This can lead to your blood pressure dropping too low, causing your heart to struggle to supply itself with blood, triggering an acute event. The result? A cardiac emergency. No warning, no pain, just silence and damage. Jimmy survived, but he's not the same. His heart function is significantly reduced, and he now requires more constant care. He told me, "Doc, I was just trying to stay active. I didn't know my own meds could turn on me." That's what we must understand. It's not that exercise is bad. It's that the context matters. When you're on medications that already lower your blood pressure or dehydrate your system, even moderate exertion, if not managed correctly, can push your heart past its threshold. So what can you do? First, if you're on any heart medication or diuretic, exercise with caution and awareness. Don't exercise after long periods of sitting or right after taking your pills. Always hydrate properly, especially in the morning and early evening when medication effects peak. If you're going to exercise, do it slowly, with controlled breathing, and rise gradually from seated or lying positions. Don't push through dizziness, lightheadedness, or unusual fatigue. Those are early whispers from your heart. And above all, talk to your doctor. Bring up your exercise routine. Ask how your medications might interact with movement. Most physicians don't warn about this in detail because they don't always see the immediate consequences. But I do. In the cardiac ward, I see the consequences daily. But here's something even more hidden, even more dangerous. What if the danger isn't from what your heart is doing, but what your lungs are forced to do during your exercise? What happens when holding your breath during a movement turns your heart into a ticking time bomb? You need to hear this next. It may be the deadliest habit yet. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. Holding your breath while exercising, Valsalva maneuver. There's a small moment during exercise, barely noticeable, when you brace yourself, tighten your core, and hold your breath just to get through the motion. It feels natural, even helpful. Maybe you've been told it gives you strength or stability. But what if I told you that for older adults, especially those over 60, that one simple act, holding your breath during physical exertion, can silently put your heart in immediate danger? Let me tell you about Clifford Barnes, a 79-year-old retired electrician from Spokane, Washington. He was a quiet, gentle man who spent his afternoons tending to his garden and helping his grandkids with their science homework. Clifford was active, careful with his diet, and did a short routine of bodyweight exercises every other day. It made him feel like he was still in control. His daughter bought him a simple exercise bench, and every morning after brushing his teeth, he'd do 6 slow chest presses before breakfast, holding his breath to brace himself. One morning, Clifford finished his set, released his breath, and moments later clutched his chest, gasping. When his wife rushed in, he was pale, sweating profusely, and complaining of a crushing pain in his chest that shot down his left arm. At the hospital, the scan confirmed it. A heart attack caused by severe stress on his cardiovascular system. Clifford, the man who once explained how to wire a fuse box in perfect detail, could now barely speak above a whisper. So what went wrong? It wasn't the exercise itself. It wasn't the number of repetitions. It was his breathing, or more accurately, his lack of it. During strenuous movements, many people instinctively hold their breath to push through the motion. This is known as the Valsalva maneuver, a forceful exhale against a closed airway, often used unconsciously to stabilize the core. While it may help younger athletes lift heavier weights, for older adults, it can be catastrophic for the heart. Here's why. When you hold your breath and strain, you create a sudden spike in intrathoracic pressure. That's the pressure in your chest cavity. This compresses major blood vessels, reducing blood flow back to the heart. Your heart initially gets less blood and therefore pumps less out, causing a temporary drop in blood pressure. Then when you release your breath, the pressure suddenly drops, and blood rushes back to the heart, causing a sharp rebound surge in blood pressure. That sudden surge in pressure and oxygen demand can put immense stress on aging arteries and an already working heart, potentially triggering an acute cardiac event or dislodging existing plaque. In Clifford's case, he already had some mild coronary artery disease, something many older adults live with unknowingly. But when he held his breath during his exercise, the rapid fluctuation in pressure created a demand his heart couldn't meet, leading to a spasm or an acute blockage. It's frightening how small the trigger can be. Breathing is something we do without thinking. But during exercise, especially movements that involve straining, breathing becomes a critical safety factor for your heart. For seniors, the body isn't as forgiving. Vessels are less elastic. The heart is more sensitive and less tolerant to drops or surges in blood pressure and oxygen. This is why I now teach every patient of mine: breathe out during the exertion phase, inhale during the recovery phase. Never hold your breath. It's simple, but it saves lives. Clifford is slowly regaining strength with cardiac rehab. His grandkids help him with his prescribed walking routine now. His daughter told me through tears he was just trying to stay strong for them. He didn't know that breath could break him, and that's exactly the danger. It doesn't feel dangerous. It doesn't feel like you're risking anything. But if your heart is struggling silently or your arteries are narrowing, that one breath-holding habit could be the spark that sets everything off. So please, the next time you exercise, even if it's just lifting something heavy, stay aware of your breathing. Your heart depends on it. But what if I told you that even when your breath is steady and your movements are gentle, you could still suffer a cardiac event simply from doing too much without rest? Let's talk about overtraining and how seniors pushing themselves too far can end up damaging the very organ they're trying to protect. You won't believe how common this one is. 5. Doing too much exercise without rest, overtraining. There's something admirable about discipline, about sticking to a routine, pushing yourself to stay strong, to stay independent. For older adults, movement isn't just about fitness. It's about dignity, freedom, and fighting back against the slow decline of age. But there's a dangerous line that many well-meaning seniors cross without knowing it. The moment when just one more set or one more mile becomes a threat to your heart. Let me tell you about Margaret Kane, an 82-year-old retired schoolteacher from Iowa. She was the kind of person who woke up before the sun, kept a handwritten journal of her daily exercises, and refused to let age win. Her granddaughter had taught her how to use a stationary bike for cardio, and Margaret took to it with determination. She started with 15 minutes a day, then 30, then 60. Within 3 months, she was cycling for 90 minutes every morning, proud of how far she'd come. But one evening after finishing her lengthy cycling session, Margaret began to feel an unfamiliar pressure in her chest and unusual fatigue. She dismissed it as just being tired. But the next morning, her daughter found her struggling to breathe, clutching her chest. The ECG told the story: a silent heart attack caused by sustained strain on her cardiovascular system. While Margaret recovered, the underlying cause shocked her and her family. Her excessive daily exercise had caused a buildup of stress in her cardiovascular system, leading to fluctuating blood pressure and increased inflammation. This isn't something people talk about. Overtraining sounds like a term for athletes or bodybuilders. But in the world of geriatric medicine, overtraining is one of the most under-recognized dangers for older adults who are trying to do everything right for their heart. Here's the truth. As we age, our body's recovery systems slow down, muscles take longer to repair, blood vessels become less elastic. And when you push your body through repetitive, strenuous activity every single day without adequate rest, your nervous system enters a constant state of low-level stress. This raises levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, increases inflammatory markers, and creates an internal environment ripe for cardiovascular strain and potential blockages. In Margaret's case, her blood work showed signs of inflammation, elevated cortisol, and signs of cardiac enzyme elevation from the constant exertion. Her heart rate variability, a measure of nervous system stress, was significantly reduced. All of these are red flags that the body is under too much strain and not enough rest. It doesn't matter if the exercise is just cycling or walking. What matters is repetition without recovery, especially in older, more fragile cardiovascular systems. There's also the oxygen factor. During intense or prolonged exercise, oxygen demand spikes throughout the body, including the heart itself. The heart works harder. If you don't rest between sessions, or if your heart function is already compromised, your heart muscle may not get the oxygen it needs, leading to ischemia, reduced blood flow, or, in extreme cases, a heart attack. Margaret told me later, "I just thought I was doing what was good for me. I didn't know I was pushing too hard. No one ever warned me." And that's the most dangerous part of overtraining. It hides behind good intentions. It looks like progress. It feels like strength. But inside the body, particularly the aging heart and circulatory system, it can be tearing down what you're trying so hard to build. So if you're over 60 and doing any form of repetitive or sustained exercise, please remember this: your body needs rest just as much as movement. Recovery isn't laziness, it's protection. Limit your vigorous exercise sessions and ensure full rest days between them. Drink more water than you think you need. And listen closely for signs of unusual fatigue, chest discomfort, or changes in your usual exercise tolerance. Those are not just old age. They may be early warning signs your heart is struggling. Margaret now walks more gently, cycles for shorter periods, drinks water throughout the day, and rests when she needs to. And she's thriving. But what if I told you that even the seemingly safest activities, or even just daily movements, could be silently setting you up for a fall that ends in a hospital bed, especially if it impacts your heart? Let's talk about how common accidents and the resulting shock can lead many seniors straight into the trauma ward with cardiac complications, and why one overlooked home hazard may be the most dangerous of all. 6. Sudden falls or trauma impacting the heart. For many older adults, maintaining balance and avoiding falls is a top priority. You take care to clear pathways, use handrails, and wear sturdy shoes. But what most people never realize until it's too late is that the very act of falling, or even just the sudden shock to the body from a near fall, can turn a simple misstep into a life-altering cardiac event. I still think about Thomas Reynolds, a 74-year-old widower and former postal worker from Delaware. He was the kind of man who never missed his morning coffee or the evening weather report. Since retirement, he'd been working hard to stay healthy for his grandkids, watching online videos about senior fitness and being careful with his movements. But one rainy morning, Thomas decided to fetch something from a high shelf after feeding the cat. He stretched, his foot slipped on a small unnoticed wet spot on the linoleum floor. He twisted violently to catch himself. And though he didn't hit his head, the sudden, uncontrolled movement and the jolt of adrenaline were profound. He landed awkwardly, catching himself, but immediately felt a sharp pain in his chest and struggled to breathe. He told me later, "I remember feeling my heart pounding out of my chest, like it was going to explode." He didn't lose consciousness, but something was terribly wrong. He called for help, and when his neighbor arrived, Thomas was pale and sweating, still complaining of chest pain. A trip to the ER and an urgent cardiac workup revealed the truth. Thomas had suffered a stress-induced cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome, likely triggered by the sudden extreme emotional and physical stress of the fall. While his arteries weren't blocked, his heart muscle had temporarily weakened, mimicking a heart attack. Worse, the profound stress response also triggered a cascade of events that could have led to dangerous arrhythmias. This isn't rare. In fact, according to the CDC, over 3 million older adults are treated in emergency rooms every year due to fall-related injuries. And many of these incidents, even if they don't involve a direct head injury, can have serious cardiovascular consequences. Here's what the science tells us. As we age, our bodies become less resilient to sudden physical and emotional shocks. The sudden adrenaline surge from a fall, or even just the fear of falling, can cause a dramatic spike in heart rate and blood pressure, overwhelming an aging cardiovascular system. This can trigger an acute myocardial infarction, heart attack, an arrhythmia, or as in Thomas's case, a stress cardiomyopathy. The sheer panic and effort to catch oneself can also lead to muscle strain and discomfort that is easily confused with cardiac pain. But the underlying heart stress is very real. Thomas survived, but he now has ongoing heart monitoring and must be extremely careful with his movements. His independence, his most prized possession, is no longer fully his, and all because of a single slip. I share his story because there are things you can do right now to avoid becoming another case like his. If you're moving around your home, check your environment first. Use non-slip mats in the kitchen and bathroom. Avoid socks on tile or hardwood. Use grip slippers or go barefoot. Always ensure clear pathways and proper lighting, and never rush. Sudden movements or being unprepared for an uneven or slick surface are a recipe for disaster for your body, and particularly your heart. But there's another factor I need you to consider, one that may seem harmless at first glance, but can turn deadly inside the aging heart. What if you're doing everything right, but you're exercising while you're sick or feeling unwell? You might think it's just a cold or mild fatigue, but your body may be under silent assault. Let's talk about the shocking connection between pushing through illness or dehydration and how that tough-it-out attitude can quietly lead to heart damage. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Exercising while sick, fatigued, or dehydrated. You've heard it before. Don't let a little fatigue stop you. Push through. A cold won't kill you. For decades, many older Americans have lived by those words. They've pushed through pain, exhaustion, even illness, believing that mental grit is all that matters. But when it comes to your aging body, especially your heart, that mindset could be the very thing that steals your vitality, your independence, or your life. One of the most heartbreaking cases I ever witnessed was Dolores Martinez, a 76-year-old grandmother from San Antonio, Texas. She was the type of person who refused to rest even when she should. A former nurse, Dolores prided herself on resilience. One morning in early spring, she woke up with a slight headache, a dry mouth, and a scratchy throat. Just allergies, she thought. She skipped breakfast, took her usual medications, and went for her morning brisk walk, determined to get her steps in. She pushed herself, despite feeling unwell. By lunchtime, her daughter found her on the sofa, gasping for breath, with a crushing pain in her chest. She was rushed to the ER, where we discovered she had suffered a heart attack due to a severe blockage. Further testing showed she was slightly dehydrated. Her blood pressure was erratic, and her blood viscosity, how thick the blood is, was elevated. That's the perfect environment for plaque to rupture and clot formation. And during the strain of that morning walk, a critical event had occurred in her heart. What Dolores didn't realize is something that affects millions of older adults every day. Being sick, even mildly, changes how your cardiovascular system behaves. When you're under the weather, whether it's a cold, a mild infection, or just a bad night's sleep, your body is already inflamed. Your immune system is releasing chemicals into your bloodstream that cause the blood vessels to constrict or dilate unpredictably. Your heart works harder, often with less efficiency. You lose more fluid through breathing, through slight fevers, or from not drinking enough water. And that thicker, slower-moving blood? It's a breeding ground for problems. The kind that, when combined with the strain of exercise, can trigger a cardiac event in seconds. And here's where the fear becomes very real. Many older adults ignore the warning signs. They think being tired is just aging. They think being a little dizzy is normal. But these signs, dry mouth, lightheadedness, unusual fatigue, muscle cramps, chest tightness, are your body whispering to you that your blood isn't circulating the way it should, or that your heart is under undue stress? And pushing through exercise under those conditions, it compresses your vessels. It can drop blood pressure for a moment, then cause a rebound surge. For someone like Dolores, who already had low-grade inflammation and was mildly dehydrated, that one act pushed her heart beyond its limit. She survived, but her independence did not. She now lives with reduced cardiac function and requires constant medication. She told me during a follow-up visit, eyes filled with tears, "I wish I had just rested one day. One day might have saved my whole life as I knew it." So what can you learn from her story? If you're feeling unwell even slightly, don't force your body into activity. Your recovery matters more than your routine. Drink water before and after any movement. Eat something small even if you don't feel like it. And skip the workout entirely if your body feels off. There's courage in knowing when to pause. Because here's the reality. At age 65 or 75, your heart doesn't bounce back the way it once did. One acute event, one moment of reduced blood flow, can cause irreversible damage. The goal of exercise isn't to prove your strength, it's to protect your life. But what if your exercise habits aren't even the problem? What if you're doing everything gently and thoughtfully, but you're exercising right before bed at the worst possible time for your heart? Let me show you why evening exercise could silently raise your heart attack risk overnight, and why so many cardiac events happen in the early morning hours just as you're waking up. Light, strenuous exercise before bedtime. At first glance, it sounds like a healthy habit. A few light exercises before bed to get the blood flowing, release stiffness, or help with relaxation. It's simple. It doesn't require equipment, and it feels good to move. But for older adults, especially those over 60, strenuous exercise before bedtime can quietly trigger one of the most dangerous shifts in heart health. And sadly, most don't realize it until it's too late. I'll never forget William Foster, a 77-year-old retired bus driver from Ohio. William had recently read an article online that said light evening exercise helped reduce leg cramps and improve sleep. He had been dealing with mild restless leg syndrome and thought this might help him. So every evening, just after brushing his teeth, he would do a short but moderately intense routine of stretches and bodyweight exercises at the side of his bed. No weights, no fast motions, but enough to get his heart rate up. One morning, William didn't come down for breakfast. His wife found him still in bed, struggling to breathe, complaining of severe chest tightness. He was pale and sweating. At the hospital, the tests confirmed it. He had suffered a heart attack during the night, likely sometime around 3 or 4 a.m., when most people are deep in sleep. But the real question was why. William wasn't a smoker. His blood pressure was well managed. His cholesterol numbers were average. What we discovered, however, was that William had mild atherosclerosis, age-related hardening of the arteries, and was slightly dehydrated. and the timing of his exercise played a deadly role. When you exercise even moderately, you're increasing pressure inside the body. Your heart rate quickens, your muscles require more oxygen, your blood vessels dilate, then constrict again as you recover. That's perfectly manageable during the day, when your body is alert, hydrated, and actively regulating itself. But when you engage in strenuous exercise just before lying down for sleep, the body has little time to recalibrate. Here's the science. As we sleep, especially in the early morning hours, our blood pressure naturally dips, a process known as nocturnal dipping. It's how the heart and body rest and repair. But for older adults, this dip can be unpredictable. Too much activity just before bed can disrupt that process, causing the body to experience a rebound effect, a spike in blood pressure and heart rate during sleep, especially in the early morning hours. And when you add in factors like dehydration, common before bed, medications, or stiff arteries, that spike can create or dislodge small clots or rupture existing plaque, leading to a sudden heart attack. This is exactly what happened to William. His heart attack wasn't caused by one big event. It was caused by a combination of tiny missteps, including exercising at the wrong time of day. What breaks my heart is that William was doing everything with the right intention. He wanted to sleep better. He wanted to stay mobile. But no one ever told him that your heart is most vulnerable between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. The hours when heart attacks most often strike, and that strenuous exercise too close to bedtime can lead to dangerous cardiovascular shifts that go unnoticed until damage has already occurred. He survived, but not without lasting consequences. His heart function is reduced, and he now has to manage a serious cardiac condition. His wife told me with tears in her eyes he was just trying to take care of himself. We didn't know we were making things worse. If you're over 60 and want to stay active, that's a beautiful goal. But the timing of your activity matters just as much as the movement itself. Never do strenuous exercise within 1-2 hours of bedtime. Instead, focus on calming movements like gentle stretching or deep breathing. Drink a glass of water and give your body time to ease into sleep. Your heart needs consistency, not strain, during the night. And if you're exercising to help with circulation or joint stiffness, do it earlier, after breakfast or in the afternoon when your body is alert and strong. But now, let me ask you something even more important. What if the real danger isn't how or when you exercise, but what's happening inside your body when you push too hard? There's one final exercise mistake I've seen trigger sudden spikes in pressure that strain the heart's most fragile vessels. And it's the one that surprises people the most. Let me show you why pushing beyond your limits, especially in older age, may be the most dangerous habit of all. 9. Pushing beyond your limits in old age. We often think that the harder we push ourselves, the better it is for our muscles and joints, and especially our heart. We see younger people online doing intense workouts, pushing their bodies to the max, and we start to wonder, if they can do it, why can't I? But what many older adults don't realize is that pushing too hard, especially after the age of 60, can cause more harm than good for your heart. And in some cases, it can quietly trigger a cardiac event. One patient I'll never forget is Harold Green, a 73-year-old retired Army medic from Georgia. Harold was the kind of man who prided himself on staying strong. He believed in training like a soldier even in retirement. Inspired by a high-intensity fitness blog, he started incorporating interval training into his morning routine. Every morning after his walk, Harold would do 15 bursts of high-intensity exercises, pushing himself to near exhaustion, trying to maintain the peak fitness the blog recommended. He felt a bit of chest tightness one morning after a session, but brushed it off as nothing. That evening, he felt unusually fatigued and had trouble breathing deeply. His wife said he looked pale, and then he suddenly collapsed, clutching his chest. They rushed to the hospital where tests revealed an acute heart attack. It was devastating. And when we looked closely at his medical profile, something stood out. Harold had moderate vascular stiffening, a natural part of aging. His arteries didn't expand and contract like they used to. He also had slightly elevated cholesterol and was borderline dehydrated. None of this was shocking, but what we didn't expect was how his intense workouts were putting tremendous, acute pressure on his cardiovascular system. Pressure his aging body could no longer handle. When you push your body to its absolute limit, your heart rate and blood pressure soar. That might be safe in youth when your arteries are pliable and your heart is robust. But in older adults, extreme exertion compresses vessels, increases the workload on the heart, and can dramatically increase the demand for oxygen by the heart muscle. For someone with stiff arteries or early plaque buildup, this can cause existing plaque to rupture, leading to an acute blockage and a heart attack. And here's what makes it worse. Seniors often hold their breath or strain while pushing themselves, even without realizing it. That act, known as the Valsalva maneuver, can cause abrupt changes in blood pressure and reduce oxygen delivery to the heart at the most vulnerable moment. It's not uncommon for a cardiac event to occur during or shortly after a period of extreme exertion. In Harold's case, it likely took days of silent strain, cumulative damage, and that morning, his intense workout was the final straw. He survived, but not without consequences. His heart function is permanently impaired, and he now has significant limitations. He told me, "Doc, I thought I was doing the best thing for myself, but I didn't know my age had changed the rules." And that's the truth for all of us. As we get older, the rules do change. What helped us at 40 can hurt us at 70. Our blood vessels become more fragile. Our heart's ability to regulate blood pressure and respond to stress decreases. Movements that once made us stronger can now become silent threats to the heart, especially when done too intensely, too often, or without guidance. If you're exercising to stay strong, and I hope you are, keep it moderate and consistent. Your goal is not to feel the burn or achieve peak performance. It's to stimulate your cardiovascular system gently and regularly. Focus on controlled movements, steady breathing, and listen to your body's signals. Intense doesn't mean better. Safe means stronger. Harold now does regular moderate walks, gentle stretching, and incorporates light resistance exercises. He breathes steadily and checks in with how his body feels. His story is one I share because it shows us the reality, not to scare, but to inform. Because when it comes to the aging heart, even a well-meaning habit can go terribly wrong without awareness. And that brings us to the most important question of all, the one I'm asked every single day after sharing stories like these. So, what should seniors actually do instead? You've seen the dangers, but now let's talk about the safer path. The movements, habits, and foods that protect your heart, strengthen your body, and extend your independence well into your later years. What you'll read next may be the most important advice you'll ever hear. 10. So, what should seniors do instead for heart health? After everything you've just heard, the stories of heart attacks, falls, and quiet medical disasters, you may be asking yourself, if exercise can be so dangerous, should I stop moving altogether? And I want to look you in the eyes, heart to heart, and tell you this. No. Please don't stop moving, but do it smarter, not harder. Movement is life. Especially after 60, your muscles, joints, and crucially your heart rely on circulation, oxygen, and gentle activity to stay healthy. But your body isn't 30 anymore. It processes stress differently. It recovers slower. And most critically, it responds to pressure and blood flow in ways that can silently increase your cardiac risk if you're not paying attention. One of my patients, Lucille Harmon, a 79-year-old retired piano teacher from Oregon, summed it up best. "I just wanted to keep moving so I wouldn't fall behind, but I didn't realize that I could hurt myself by trying too hard." Lucille was active, maybe too active. She did brisk walks, intense stretches, and challenging floor exercises every day without rest, even on days when she felt tired or dizzy. One afternoon, after rising from a set of demanding bodyweight exercises, she felt a burst of warmth in her chest, followed by sudden shortness of breath. Her heart pounded erratically. She had just experienced an angina attack, a warning sign of insufficient blood flow to the heart. The ECG later showed signs of stress on her heart, likely from repeated strain and chronic dehydration. Lucille's story isn't unique. I see this often. Seniors with the best of intentions unknowingly walking toward danger because they were never told the rules had changed. So, what should you do for your heart? First, let's talk about timing. Never do intense exercise right after waking or right before bed. Those are the times your blood pressure and hydration levels are the most unstable, putting extra strain on your heart. Instead, aim for mid-morning or early afternoon when your body is awake, fueled, and better equipped to regulate blood flow. Second, moderate and simplify your movements. Instead of high-impact cardio or heavy lifting, focus on brisk walking, gentle swimming, or supported bodyweight exercises. Your goal isn't to build Olympic-level strength. It's to gently engage your large muscle groups, just enough to stimulate circulation and strengthen your heart, without overtaxing your cardiovascular system. Third, hydrate like it's your medicine. Dehydration makes your blood thicker, slower, and forces your heart to work harder. I tell my patients to drink a glass of room temperature water before any movement. Just that simple act alone could reduce the strain on your heart. Fourth, and this is vital, listen to your body. Dizziness is not just old age. Fatigue is not weakness. Chest discomfort, unusual shortness of breath, or lightheadedness are not normal. These are warnings. Your heart's way of whispering that something inside is off balance. If you feel off, stop, rest, reassess. You don't prove strength by pushing through pain. You show wisdom by adjusting to what your body is telling you. And lastly, pair your movement with nourishment. What you eat directly affects your heart. Choose whole foods that support cardiovascular health. Salmon, leafy greens, walnuts, berries, oats, lean proteins. These don't just nourish, they protect. Lucille now follows a gentle routine. She takes moderate walks twice a week, stretches in the sunlight, drinks water throughout the day, and rests when she needs to. And her heart health is better than ever. She told me recently, "I didn't know how close I came to losing everything. Now I know better, and I'm still moving, just not blindly." That's the key. Don't move blindly, move wisely. Because in this stage of life, every decision matters more. Every movement has impact, and every habit can either protect your heart or quietly threaten it. But you may still be wondering after all of this, after knowing the dangers and learning how to adapt, how do you actually put it all together? Let's tie it all up in one place. What are the clear, safe, heart-protecting habits you can follow starting tomorrow morning? Let me show you the exact daily routine I recommend to all my senior patients. The one that balances safety, strength, and longevity for your heart. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.